more reliable source. Now, reliable in the sense whichever is having the lesser AD value is more trusted. Like if you take this example here, so in this example, I just have a simple sample outputs, which is going to explain. Like let's say there is a specific subnet. Let me start with these two subnets here, 10.1.1.0 and 10.1.13.0. Now I can see these two routes are present in the topology table, as well as you can see these specific routes are also present in the routing table. So in EHRP, as you know, the routes will be present in the topology table, and then probably the best of them will be installed in the routing table here. But again, if you observe this specific, the green one, this one, this route is in the topology table here. So it is in my topology table, but not in the routing table, right? So if you want to verify why the specific route, because sometimes you may see some routes in the topology table, but they are not in the routing table. Now you can always verify with that specific command like show IP route, and you can type down the specific network ID, whatever the network ID, and the subnet mask. It clearly says that in the routing table you have this entry and this route is connected. So which is having the AD value of 0, which is better than EHRP 90 or 170. If it is external routes, then it is 170. So basically you may learn the routes from multiple sources. Like in this case, this particular route is also learned directly connected as well as learned through EHRP. So it's going to install this specific route. Now the same thing applicable for this one as well. You can see this one, the default route. Like I think let's say there is a default route, static default route pointing towards the ISP. And this default route is statically configured and it is redistributed into the EHRP. So any redistributed routes, you will have the AD value of 170. So you will see this is redistributed static. So normally if you check, you will see that redistributed route. So you can see this route is in the EHRP topology table, but even though it is in the EHRP topology table, it is not installed in the routing table because this particular router is already configured with static route, which is having the AD value of 1. So probably these are some of the sample outputs which will give some idea on understanding these things. So basically, if you don't see the routes in the routing table as EHRP, that is not actually a problem. That simply says that even though the routes are being advertised in EHRP, but there is a better routing source, maybe a static route or maybe any other routing protocol with a lesser AD value is being used to forward the traffic, means it is using that path which is given by the static route or any other route, and it is not using EHRP best route. So that is a meaning of that. Now, while you are troubleshooting this suboptimal routing, so generally when you are troubleshooting these things, if you don't see the routes in the routing table, so it may be because of the alternate routing which is being used instead of EHRP. So we call this, sometimes there is something called suboptimal routing kind of thing we need to know. Now suboptimal routing here, what it exactly means is, if you take this example here, this router, now to reach, let's say from this PC, we'll consider from this PC to reach this particular subnet. So this is my destination. So there are multiple routes, like this is one route, which is most likely like 1 gig path, and it is used by EHRP. And let's assume the EHRP AD value is 90 because maybe it is internal EHRP. And there is another route from this side, which is a 10 gig link. And this 10 gig link is running OSPF. And assume the network ID and the range is same. So by default, again, here it is going to decide the best route based on the lower AD value. So when you have EHRP and OSPF both configured, so by default, EHRP is more preferable and it is going to install because of the lesser AD value, because the less AD value means it is more trusted. So sometimes maybe whatever the best route calculated by the routing protocol may not be the actual best path. Because if you see here, you may want to prefer this 10 gig link, not this EHRP link. Maybe you don't want to use this. So probably in this kind of scenarios, what we can do is we can go ahead and modify the administrative distance value as well. Like here, I can go ahead and say that the EHRP AD value should change to 111, something higher than this. So which will ensure that when the router installs the route in the routing table, it installs this OSPF routes or this 10 gig link routes, and probably it uses this path to forward the traffic. Okay, because most of these kind of things we call as suboptimal routing information, because most of the time if the traffic is being forwarded from low speed link, the users will not complain because they're still able to send the traffic, but at then you're not using the best route with the best bandwidth. So in that kind of scenarios, you may want to modify, you may want to tweak or change the administrative distance or the cost values. Probably we will do that so that we can use the best route as per our conditions.